Let me just get this off my screen. He's been honored by the state of Florida with the Artist Hall of Fame Award. He was chosen as a Person of the Week on the ABC Peter Jennings TV evening news program. He's gotten the Heartland Community Service Award from Governor Chiles for educating the people of Florida about the beauty of the state. He's got the Conservation Colleague Award from the Nature Conservancy. Are you exhausted yet at the amount of awards he has? The Sierra Club has awarded him the Ansel Adams Conservation Award, which that one's given to a photographer who shows excellence in photography and has also contributed to the public awareness of the environment. And he's got a whole bunch of beautiful books to his name. I encourage you to look into all these books, and you can also see his photography if you haven't before. He's got a gallery in Venice. That's Venice, Florida, not Venice, Italy. And he's got one at his big Cypress gallery as well, which is located on 13 acres in the center of the Everglades, like halfway between Naples and Miami on the Tamiami Trail. So this guy's amazing. I'm super excited. I hope you're super excited to get ready to ask him some fun questions, and let's hear what he has to say. You're on, Clyde.
Oh, this is the screen.
So Clyde, you might want to unmute yourself and share your screen. Yeah, I think you can.
There it is.
Oh, no, you asked me.
Great.
Okay, now you seeing the
We
piece of
got
paper?
it. We see
Okay.
you guys.
Okay, great.
You're perfect, Clyde. Go for it.
Okay. Well, we originally from California, and we were living. I built this little boat, 20-foot sailboat for the four of us to live on. All these things in Newport Beach, California, and we built this so we could trailer it to Florida, because I always loved the movies Flipper and Sea Hunt, and I always wanted to come to Florida. Now I had no idea anything about the Everglades. I didn't know they even existed. This is an anchorage over Boca Grande, and we're headed out to Tortugas. And then after we here a little while, I started doing art shows to make a living, and I took my out west work and I did a few beach shots that I did in Florida. But I still didn't have any idea what the Everglades were. I really didn't start photographing here because I didn't understand Florida. Didn't have any idea. Then one day we were on the 27 going to an art show in Disney, and there's a place called Fish Eating Creek, and Tom Gaskin was really a neat guy. He'd been living in this little Fish Eating Creek since 1936, and Nikki likes to stop at these little, old tourist places. And I was getting a little tired, and he could see that I was not too excited about this. So he said, "There's a boardwalk out and back." Now I've seen pictures. I saw pictures of gators and snakes. So boardwalk sounded really good. So,
Oh, go ahead.
so he sent me back there, and because this was a boardwalk. It was about 1 foot wide. It was nailed to trees, and it was not a handicap boardwalk. But once I got into the swamp, what?
Yeah.
Nikki keeps patting me on the back here, and I understood. I started to understand what it was about, because one of my favorite places in California was the redwood forest, and this really reminded me of the redwoods. And the cypress tree is a relative of the redwoods. Then the same week, I met Oscar Thompson. Oscar was the 5th generation Floridian photographer in Fort Myers. He had a photography shop, and I stopped by his place, to get something that get some film. And he was looking at these slides, and I said, "What are these slides?" And he says, "Well, it's right down the street here." And I said, "Could you take me down there?" He said, "Okay." He took Melody. He said, "Melody, you take the gallery, take the shop," and he put me in the truck, took me down to Big Cypress. And that, unfortunately, that was a dry season, and this is what the Everglades looks like in dry season. It's basically coral, as a coral base, because we used to be part of the ocean, bottom of the ocean here. So then I started photographing in color. And I've been photographing in color since 1972 in California and Washington, Oregon, Tetons. So it was natural for me to start photographing in color and for Florida. And I was doing very well at the art shows. And then in 1986, our son of 17 years old was killed by a drunk driver. And I had been thinking about going back to black and white for a long time. And when something like that happens, you kind of want to do what you want to do. But the problem was the art shows, the people who were doing black and white were not selling anything. But Nikki, she was taking her black and white images and hand painting them. So she had colors. She was doing the art shows, and we thought she could make a living. I could play artist. So I took this one image of the dunes, and I converted it to black and white to see how I think it was going to work. And I thought because I started back in the 60s, I started out with black and white. And I started in 61. Then about 71, 72, I went to color because Ansel Adams couldn't even hardly sell anything in black and white. So I bought an I was shooting by 5x7 camera. So I went to 8x10 so I could get more detail. So when you have more detail, when you see one of my large images, you feel like you can walk into it. This is an idea. This is Ochapi in color. This is Ochapi in black and white. And I think black and white, just to me, is just, it really shows the impact of what Florida is all about. There's just too much color for Florida. You can't see it because of the color. Moonrise, this was one of my first pictures I took out in Big Cypress. And it's kind of been, because when I started photographing in black and white in Florida here, I didn't care what was going to sell. I wanted to take pictures of what I felt was important about Florida. And then I started doing the art shows with my black and white, and it was very successful. And I was in West Palm Beach at Sunfest. I think it was 1989. And the head of water management came into my booth from West Palm Beach there. And he said, we need these photographs in our office there so people can see what Florida was about. Because up to then, most people were photographing birds and gators. And, to me, it's okay, but to me, the life of Florida is the environment, because you have to have the environment for the birds and the gators and the snakes. So they took me out. This is the Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge. Now, this is where these people are, he's talked about just trying to pollute this. In fact, this area here, I think it was in 89 or 88, where the federal government, because it is in charge of this wildlife refuge, so they started suing the state of Florida for the destruction of the environment because of the pollution. So this Loxahatchee Wildlife Area was the beginning of the fight over the Everglades. Then I did a bunch of pictures for them for free. They wanted me to do a picture for the 10th anniversary of the Save the Rivers. And this is a picture. It took me about 3 years to get this. This is on the Loxahatchee River. It's like a fantastic, if you have to go down this river to really appreciate it. And this is I started working on this is a project that we're doing for Kissimmee. river restoration. And this is a little talk of, you can all.
One of the really important parts of this whole Everglades restoration. I mean, we live in Big Cypress, and Everglades National Park is a great place. But when they established the park in 1947, all parks had been uphill from civilization. This was the first park that was downhill. And so now, after what, 50 years or 40 years, they figured, oh, we've got to clean up the headwaters. So that's what's so great about this. You can't clean the Everglades without cleaning the headwaters. This is the logical place to start. It's up here. Get this clean, then clean Okeechobee, and then clean the conservation area, and then you'll have clean water for the Everglades. So it was just a natural thing to do, but everybody was concentrated on Everglades National Park. For some reason, they didn't realize you had to work at the headwaters. And finally, the concept has come to reality, and it's being fixed.
So what I've been doing ever since then is taking and doing traveling museum shows around the state and around the country to illustrate to people what Florida and the Everglades is all about. This was in St. Mary's University in Williamsburg. And this was in Orlando. And this one was in Ringling in Sarasota. So, but we've had shows from Montana, Iowa, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, all over the country to try to illustrate what Florida is all about. Now people don't realize what I do. This is what I've done for many years, having to shoot with film. Film is a little different than digital. It takes a little bit more effort. And usually it takes two people. Nikki's been my wife now for 58 years. And we just work together like a team. And she's kind of like my nurse. It takes, you'll see here how this is what we just wander through, and then all of a sudden we'll stop and see something. And I say, oh, that's going to be nice. So I just set the tripod up and set the camera up and take a picture. But it's not quite like digital. It takes a little bit more time. First, you got to get the camera out of the bag, because you can't put the camera bag down on the ground. So this is an 8x10 camera. It's a wide angle lens. It's about 100-degree angle lens. Then she's got to get my dark cloth out so I can see. Hanging on my thing was my loop there to focus with. So I take the dark cloth. I'm able to focus the camera. You can see this is really a quick operation to do film photography. So I got the film set up. Put the dark cloth back. Well, first thing I set the shutter and shut the lens, stop the lens down to f45. Okay. So that's cocking the shutter. Now she's got to get the film out for me. You can see it's really nice to have help. So that each holder has 2 sheets of film. When it's white, it means it has not been exposed. So then I take that exposes the film, and then I click the shutter. I think it was about a 10-second exposure. Then when you put it back in, you have it the black side out, so you know that sheet of film has been exposed. Now you got to do everything backwards, got to put everything away. You see a couple of mosquitoes fly by, and there's your picture. So when Florida it's pretty exciting to get up there and shoot these thunderstorms. I've had lightning come out of my fingers, hair sailing in. That's the most scary part out there. It's more scary than gators and snakes. But the storms is what I love in Florida. Now, for some reason, and I think it was 1993, I decided to get a larger camera. This is a 12 by 20 camera. The lens, the camera, the film holders, everything together weighed 120 pounds. So this is a pretty silly camera, but it takes nice pictures. This is Movie Dome. Movie Dome is in Everglades National Park. It's a really great dome. In the center of the dome is water. On the edges, it can be dry. But where the water is deeper, the trees are bigger. And then when it's on the edges, the trees are smaller. This is a dry area. So just about 15 feet from here, it was really wet. Then in the summertime, this all will get flooded with water. This is a cigar orchid down in the Everglades National Park, and unfortunately, it's one of the biggest ones that I've ever seen. But it was blown down in the last hurricane, so it's not there anymore. Florida changes all the time with hurricanes. It's just like one of those things that happens. It's just, for me, it's really great because it changes things, and I can take a new picture of the same spot every year. This particular year, I can't remember exactly what year it was. I think it was 95 or 96. There was so much food that the birds didn't care if I was there, because this is a wide angle lens and I'm really close to these guys, and they didn't care. There was so much food there. They wanted to eat. It was a great photograph. Really fun. We call these the kind of cathedrals of bromeliads. When you have high water like this, there's hardly any mosquitoes too. So that people think when there's all this water, there's a lot of mosquitoes, but then the fish come in and the bladderworts come in, and when it rains often, it washes the mosquitoes out of the bromeliads. So usually when you have high water, you have less mosquitoes. Now this was an adventure we were going to head on to photograph the ghost orchid. The ghost orchid is one of those rare plants that you can't really find it because there's no leaves on it. This particular year, the only one we could find that was blooming was up about 13 or 14 feet. So the day before, we brought in all these ladders and tripods because we had to come back in the morning. So it took us 2 days to do this. And you can see these guys who are doing a movie of this. They had all these, I can't handle these nests, these little screens on my face. You can see Mike Owens, the ranger, myself, and this other guy who's a redneck. We just don't, I can't handle those things. So you can see that on the tree there's the roots, and there's no leaves. It's just a beautiful little flower. It's an amazing flower. And this was CBS morning show that we were tracing the same track that the orchid thief, the book was written about. And this particular orchid was taken out, and then when they got caught, they put this particular orchid back. So Mike Owens showed them where some of the orchids were that they replanted, reattached them to the trees, and they're still growing. Now, when you're out in August, sometimes it just gets a little hot, you get a little tired. So you just got to sit down, cool off. I hung my backpack up in a tree somewhere, and I just lay in the water for about 20 minutes and cool off, because the water is really cool in the summertime. It's probably maybe 80 degrees where it's 90, 95 outside. So that's how I cool off. It's the water is really clean and pure, but it's really fun. Now this is a cigar orchid entrance to what I call the cigar orchid pond. We were there at this pond, and I saw this image in January 1st in 2000. And I went back there every year for 9 years before everything was right. I finally got the image. It took 9 years. It's about a 2.5 hour walk through the swamp from the gallery. This is right behind our gallery, about 2.5 hour walk. And this to me just gives me the feeling of the Everglades. Now, this is something I don't normally do. This is the spring, the dry season. When you go out there in the spring and the dry season, there's a lot of snakes. But I wanted to see the base of all these cypress trees. I wanted to get the feeling of this whole, I mean, see the dark area where the light area is up there? That's where the normal water area, and water health, right? But in the summertime, the water is up to my waist. But I wanted to see this whole thing without the water. But unfortunately, you have to be very careful because the snakes are out. Actually, a lot of rattlesnakes in this area, and water moccasins. And when the water holes are small like this, the gators are very protective. So I'm having to really be careful. You probably can't see it on television, but in the very back there's about a 10-foot gator laying there. And Nikki's keeping an eye on it. Now I took this shot, he was laying in that water right in front of me. And when I'm underneath that dark cloth, you can't see what's coming. So I was hoping that Nikki would say, okay, run. If that gator, because their gators are fast. If they want to be, they can really be fast. So she was watching for me to make sure it was okay. And this was a beautiful place, but like I say, it was, I don't usually go out in the spring like this because it's a little bit more dangerous. The gators are a little bit more frisky and snakes are mating season. Now, part of the Everglades, which I didn't really realize, but a lot of it's in the ocean. The mangroves that surround the Everglades, which the mangroves then protect the Everglades from hurricanes and storms. And they're a place where all the little fish develop from little fish to big fish. So these mangroves protect the nursery for the fishery. Now you can see I'm in the water here, and you can, when I do my pictures, I want you to feel, if you see this picture, I make an 8-foot picture of this. When you're standing in front of it, you feel like you're right there, you're right in a canoe. And that's the idea I wanted to do, is get you to feel what the Everglades is. A lot of people don't want to be out there. It's not, it's not very, well, it's not very tourist friendly. And then some simple things like a sand spit. It's these little black or fish nests. But this tree, this cloud. If you ever stand in the Everglades and watch a cloud develop from a small cloud and go up bigger and bigger, and this is when the cloud just blew up. And it blew up. It went all. This is Key Largo. Went all the way to Miami when it blew up. And I did a slideshow at the library in Key Largo. This fellow wanted me to take me out, take me around to photograph. And he had this little boat with this 300 horsepower motor. So we were going all over the place, and he was fascinated because he never stopped and look at things. He was a fisherman, so it didn't catch anything in a little while. He'd move on. So he really never stopped and looked and see what happened. When you want to understand the environment, you have to be still. You have to be there. People are so busy these days that they just don't. So we were chasing clouds. I found this cloud, and I just jumped out of the boat, set the camera up, middle of Florida Bay. The only thing missing here is the no-see-ums and mosquitoes. But you can see how close I am. And when you see this photograph, you feel you're there because of the perspective. You can feel you're inside this mangrove almost. And that's the feeling I wanted to do, to get people to understand what it's about. And it's a beautiful place. And before I started photographing the Everglades, everybody thought this was really a weird, kind of a mysterious, dangerous place, but it's a beautiful place. And this is out in Pahokee in the Everglades National Park. Sometimes I sit there with plastic bags around my camera and an umbrella, and may sit there for 2 or 3 hours waiting for something. And all of a sudden the sky will clear and beautiful scene. So a lot of times I just sit there and wait. And this was about 10 years after Andrew. And this is an area where Andrew hit that's coming back. And it's really kind of a neat area because it's actually a sand bottom. It's really easy to walk on. You can see how clear it is. That's it's like a nursery of mangroves. This is our gallery in Venice. We bought this property in 1999 for my darkroom. And then we said, well, you know, we have extra room, let's start up a gallery. This is part of the darkroom. The darkroom is 2,200 square feet. And I have 8 enlargers. The one on the very left is 11 by 14. And the other ones are 8 by 10 enlargers. And the one on the 11 by 14 I bought that from Miami Herald for $300. They paid in 1936. I think they said it was 36. Was $50,000. It was quite a machine. It's like what we do twice a year. We give tours of the darkroom and lectures on how we do the printing. And that's Neil, my son-in-law, is explaining how we burn and dodge and make the prints. And this is our Big Cypress Gallery. Big Cypress Gallery is actually I would say it's the very heart of the Everglades. About 40-mile radius around the gallery is the Everglades. It's 50 miles from Miami and 50 miles from Naples. We use that Publix as a register. That's Publix is the first food store is 50 miles from the gallery. We lived here from 1993 until 2010, and we moved back to Florida. And the bungalow and the swamp cottage were now our vacation rentals. And the gallery in front here is it's a beautiful location. This is a picture from the parking lot. And people come to our gallery and they say, you know, where do you go to take photographs? I say, well, a parking lot. They get all upset and say, well, come on now. So I show them I've got like 3 or 4 pictures from the parking lot. In Florida, you have to look. It's not something that is obvious. It's obvious to me, but not obvious to a lot of people. This was, I think, in 2002, President Carter had been wanting to see my work for a long time. He had been given a new Canon digital camera with 16 megabytes. And I was explaining that I'm using 8 by 10 and 6-minute exposures and all the trouble that I have with doing a large format. And he said, well, isn't it difficult? And I said, well, why did you run for president? Was it difficult? So anything worthwhile, I think, is worth doing. And he and his family, we took him on this swamp walk with the, of course, with the Secret Service people they were they were scared to death to start with. You can see the president and his wife were just, Rosalind, they were just having a smile. They were just having a good time. But after the Secret Service got in, a few in there a while, they got easy with it. So this is the cottage. You can see up on top we have 11,000 watts of solar on the house with 3 Tesla batteries. And the living room overlooks this beautiful little pond. And that's where I take my bird photography is done from my porch. So when I see something interesting, I go upstairs, I open the window up and just take a picture. These were taken from my porch in air conditioning. To me, that's the way of shooting birds, is in air conditioning. Oh, there was a Hinga and this wood stork were having a battle one day. That was pretty wild to see. They were, I think the wood stork got the better of it though. Those 2 guys were having it out because I guess you know, but if you don't know birds, in a pond like this, there's a dominant bird, and there was some white egrets, and I've never seen such violent birds. This one dominant egret was just really upset with another egret. He actually grabbed him by the throat, and they were falling off the tree with this hold on to the guy's throat. And then finally he got the guy out of there. So in our swamp walks, we try to explain to people about what's happening there. Now, it's an amazing place. The Everglades, there's one of the things that I love about is it's called the periphyton. It's a algae. It's made all kinds of stuff. It's a kind of a gooey thing that actually is on the bottom of the water, and it does 2 things. In the wintertime, when it dries down, it holds water so that the fish and the crawdads and the frogs lay their eggs underneath the periphyton, and so that it keeps them moist until the rains come in the summertime. And then in the summertime, when the water is running through, it's actually the periphyton is what cleans the Everglades. It basically takes the parts down to 10 parts per billion. And what I understand is when it cleans, what does it do with this extract? It has to precipitate. What it precipitates is limestone. So it takes shit and turns it into limestone. Pretty neat. And then we have what's called bladderworts. It's a little plants that float, and they they eat the mosquito larvae. It's like a vicious plant. Now this is Oscar Thompson and myself. I became great friends with Oscar. Oscar lived in the Big Saukers, lived with the Indians. He taught me about all I knew about the Everglades. And this was our last adventure together. He died of a heart attack at 55 years old, about 3 months after this was taken. And this is a picture that wish I could have taken. And I put this in there to try to remind everybody that the world's round. We're a little spaceship going through the atmosphere, through the whole universe. And we need to be, this is a ship we're on. We've got to learn to live with each other, how to control ourselves with it. There's only so much resources. We keep using up resources and not being prudent, the world will take care of us. So, okay, you want to ask some questions now? Have anything to do?
Yeah. There's a ton of questions. Even more than questions, there are people. Hi, this is Autumn, by the way, I'm back. There are people who are just heaping praise on you, that they're talking about experiences, having seen your work in the past, and just everybody's thrilled. Like I'm having to sort through between the
Okay.
questions and the questions and the compliments. But way back when, at the beginning, I think the first question I got was, it was way up here. It was about how you feel about the big conversion to digital.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Actually, I really love it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The reason the reason I'm using 8x10 back then is because there wasn't any good digital. You couldn't do a large picture. There was no digital. As far as I'm concerned, the first good digital cameras didn't come out until about 2013.
Yeah.
And now with like I have a Fuji medium format with 100 megabytes, I can do 10-foot prints no problem. So I can get the same feeling. And also I had it converted to black and white, so I had the color stripped off, so it shoots purely in black and white. And I use lenses that they're similar to what I used in the view camera, where you can lower the lens, raise the lens, you can tilt the lens, get in more depth of field. So it's very similar. I'm using filters just like I did in film. Use a red, orange, yellow, green, to bring out different things in the sky or the grass or the trees. It's a lot more ecological oriented. It's a lot lighter. And also what's nice about it, now you have to realize, when you use an 8x10 camera, a wide angle lens, 100-degree angle lens, it's like a 16 millimeter on 35. On the 8x10, it's 120 millimeters.
Whoa.
So you can see the depth of the field problems shooting a 120 millimeter lens with something that's 6 feet away or 4 feet away and to infinity. How do you get everything in focus?
Yeah.
You got to stop it down to f64. Then in film has what's called a reciprocity failure. So that gives me exposures up. The brightest exposure I can do in sunlight is 1 second. So that means the grass has to stop for at least a second. So if you're going to photograph something that's 6 minutes, that means it can't move for 6 minutes.
Oh.
So with digital, in 6 minutes instead of 6 minutes, I'm shooting at f11 instead of f64. I'm shooting at 400 ASA or ISO. So it's probably a 50th of a second instead of 6 minutes.
Wow.
So you can see the difference in convenience.
Yeah.
I don't think Florida likes to be photographed with 8x10 or larger. I tell you, I really struggled to get these images, because like that one that I did of the cigar pond took 9 years.
Oh my God.
Because it'd be something wrong every time, and it was about a 4-minute exposure. So it means
Wow.
It couldn't be any wind. Had to be overcast, which makes the exposure longer. The resurrection fern had to be up, because resurrection fern, if it's dry, is dead. So everything had to come together. But I could have done it in less time if I was shooting at a 50th of a second instead of 4 minutes.
Right.
So, and I'm getting too old to wait around for 9 years to take a picture. Might be dead in 9 years.
So we're embracing the digital. That's
Oh yeah. I mean, it's I have, but what most of the lenses I use are Canon tilt and shift lenses. And I use those on the Fuji and also on my Sony. Because these lenses, you can shift it from one side to the other and make panoramas without moving the camera. So everything is perfectly aligned. There's just so much I can do with the digital cameras that I couldn't do with film.
Yeah.
But I had to have the film at that time to make large prints.
Yeah.
Like the 12 by 20 negative, I made a 24-foot print with that one for a display in an environmental shop display, and it had no grain, but
Wow.
it was 24-foot print. It's it's pretty good size print.
Yeah.
And it's sharp as a tack.
So, and when you're, when you're doing a print that large, how many people does it take to operate the enlarger and actually create the print?
At least 2, sometimes 3, because I'll say, well, I'll dodge this area, you dodge that area,
Oh my
you
God.
dodge that area.
It's like a dance.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. It's like it is a performance. A large print like that on the paper with chemicals, it takes the testing and everything. Usually to get a final print, it takes about a week, at least 4 days
Wow.
to get a print. And
Wow.
unfortunately, I didn't put I have a larger I built for the 12 by 20 negatives. It's a process camera I got from a printer in Miami. It has a 16-foot rail, so I can move. I can do up to 96-inch image area by 54 inches on that easel.
Wow. So now going back to when you had to carry the heavy camera,
Right.
how did you manage to carry a camera that weighed 120 pounds around the Everglades?
Normally I had it with a boat. I have a canoe. Also, my wife, what I would do, she would have the film holders. She'd have a backpack for the film holders. And then I'd have a backpack for the lenses. And then I would actually carry the camera with a strap over my shoulder and the tripod. And it was difficult.
Yeah.
I did it a few times. Most of the times was with the canoe. Because a lot of areas I go into, you can use a canoe. Sometimes you just have to walk it, but it's a lot easier to walk it than trying to carry it all on yourself.
Yeah.
The Loxahatchee picture, that the log laying across there, that I'd been trying to photograph the Loxahatchee River for about 3 years and getting the light right, everything right. And this one day, everything was right. So what I did is actually put the camera gear and film and all that in the canoe, and I swam the canoe down the Loxahatchee.
Oh my God.
So I didn't have to waste time getting in and out of the canoe. There's a lot of snakes in that river.
Yes. Oh, geez.
Nikki said, I said, there's a lot of snakes. And we were out one day and I came back and she said, I haven't seen any snakes. I said, you haven't been looking up. They hang out in the trees. The water buckets are all over those trees.
It's a good thing she didn't look up.
Yeah, I think it's very end when we got there. I said, okay, now look up, hon. And I said, there's where the snakes are. Oh, okay.
It must be love.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, it's really fascinating. Nature is, it really helped us survive the death of our son. Get out in nature. You ever have a chance, if you find an old growth tree, hug it for about 15 minutes. You get a real charge out of it. It really is. You can feel the tree.
Yeah. I think nature is a huge. It's very therapeutic. I think we would do better to use it more in that way, or to use it to be out in nature more for that reason. Somebody asked if you ever shoot in infrared. Have you ever shot in infrared?
No, no, I do use orange and red filters, which gives the illusion of kind of infrared in the black and white. But to me, shooting in infrared film is a little too hokey. But that's not, no. My wife does hand painting, and she used to use a lot of infrared film when she was shooting film, because then she could take the palm trees and paint the leaves pink or white. She paint them any color she wanted. So that's really good for that, for hand painting. It's really nice.
Now, this is an interesting question, because there's been a lot of controversy with photographing birds lately. And somebody asks, somebody else asked a question and I lost it. Like, what do you think of them creating a photography license in the same way that they have hunters licenses to protect the birds in the environment?
Well,
It's a tough one.
that could be really, see, okay, where I photograph, there's no problem. I've been photographing since 1984 in the Everglades. Never met another person. Okay, so where I go, you don't have to worry about too many people. Now out west, out west is photographers are like ants crawling over everything. But I think most of the people that shoot birds are probably shooting them from boardwalks, and I don't think they go out in the deep swamp, do they?
They probably aren't going out in the deep swamp as much, but people are doing things like, sort of harassing birds in order to get the picture that they want, which I guess where that comes from.
Well, that's, people can just be kind of stupid.
Yeah.
You gotta leave animals alone. I've never had any problem with gators or snakes. When we took President Carter out, they had shotguns, they had pistols,
Right.
they had I don't know how many weapons. And I gave the Secret Service a stick. I said, now this is your best weapon. You're not going to hurt anybody. You're not going to hurt a snake. You're not going to hurt a gator. You're just going to annoy him. You just push him out of the way. So that's what I do as far as, and then of course, if you just avoid the snakes and the gators, you just don't, if you see one, don't bother him.
Yeah.
Would you like somebody coming to your house and bothering you?
Exactly.
That's what it is like. If you get bothering a bird, it's like someone coming into your home.
Yep.
Their home. It's their home.
So here's a great question, and I'm going to read the whole thing because it's a really interesting question. This is from Les. He says, it has taken an unending battle to keep the Everglades alive, and what's left and conservable is so greatly diminished. Now the Everglades system is shrinking northwards as sea level rises. What does the future hold? How powerful have your photos been in bending the trajectory towards Everglades survival? Like, do you feel that your photographs have helped that, sort of stem that tide?
Well, a good illustration of that is what they're doing with the solar panels.
Yeah.
The government is trying to get rid of the Everglades, trying to get rid of Florida. They're doing their best to get rid of it. I just don't. Okay, you can maybe do a few things locally to help, but unless we take the big picture, and everybody has to get involved in it. Now, you put solar on your house. You don't put it on your house to make money. You put solar on your house, do the right thing. It's not to make money off the solar. People are, they value everything if it costs too much, or it's, I don't know how to explain it, but I talk to multimillionaires and they say, oh, it's not, solar's not efficient. You know, and I say, well, you can't spend $50,000. You just bought $1 million painting. You can't spend 50,000 on solar.
Right.
I mean, these people are just, people don't like change.
Yeah, it's hard.
Most women don't like the looks of the solar on their roof. Right?
Yeah. It's hard. It's
Not hard. It's not hard.
You know, it's not hard for people that understand, but it's difficult to change the minds of people.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Because
Yeah.
they don't, because one reason is they're so busy, they haven't got time to think.
Right.
One thing about neat with large format photography, or the way I do photography, sometimes I'm out waiting for the light, or sometimes for 2 or 3 hours, half a day. A lot of time to think.
Yeah,
So
I think that's really interesting to me too. Like, you must have incredible patience.
and persistence.
Yeah. And it's both. I mean, that's what it's taken to get these beautiful photographs.
Right, it does. But also you get time to reflect on things too. You say to
Yeah.
yourself, this is so beautiful. We've been some places that are just on the Santa Fe River. There's some gorgeous, there's an area on the Santa Fe River towards the Swanee. I think there's 6 miles of solid ancient cypress trees. They're up to 53 feet in circumference. These trees are 1,000 years old, 800 years old. And you can feel the whole, I mean, it's just, nature is pretty exciting if you're there long enough to appreciate it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Digitally, if I take more than 3 pictures a day with a digital camera, that's a lot.
Huh.
If you take more than 3 or 4 pictures a day, you're not really serious.
Huh.
Now that's different on birds, because birds are always moving and everything, but landscape, if you can get 1 picture a day, you're doing really good.
That's really interesting. And that's, it feeds right into my next question, which is someone asked, in complex environments such as cypress swamps, what's your thought process on how to highlight the essence of the habitat within such complexity? That's kind of a big question, but.
Well, no, it's really actually very simple. I'm an architect by trade. And what I do is try to create a visual space people can go into. So it's actually, I'm finding spaces.
Wow, yeah.
It's something everything I do actually is point and shoot too. I don't look through the camera. I don't even focus anymore. The digital, I don't even have to focus.
That's true.
Because on the lenses I use, they have a gauge where you can put, you can adjust the focus right on the camera without looking through it. You don't even need to look through the camera.
Yeah.
People don't. In large format photography, everything is upside down and backwards, and you can't see the whole composition with wide angle lenses. So I've learned to just look and feel a shot and use your arms, and you say, okay, this is, you embrace the photograph and say, this is it. So it's kind of like an embracing thing. I don't know, it's hard to explain.
No, but I mean, I think you explained it well. And I think it's really interesting to say that, you know, that you're an architect, because it's exactly what it is. When you create these giant, you create spaces for people to kind of, we fall into the spaces, you know,
Right.
when we them.
But that makes you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's somebody asking, do you still do large format camera workshops? There were a couple people that praised the large camera in the chat that who have friends who have been there, and they think they're amazing. So somebody was just asking, because
No,
they have,
I
Go ahead.
don't, I gave that up about, probably around 2002. It was in the swamp, it's difficult to give workshops. How do you get to people? You know, you're walking around in a foot of mud and you get 8 people, and how do you do it? It's just too difficult.
yeah,
So it became too difficult because I tell people one thing you can do is when you're shooting landscapes, close one eye.
huh,
People look with both eyes,
yeah,
and that gives you 3 dimensions. And a picture is not 3 dimension; it's 2 dimension. You close one eye when you look at things. You'll say, "Oh, close an eye. Oh, that wasn't any good.
right,
It's flat. It's flat."
yeah. But I can't, there's so many people complimenting you. I can't even find the questions. Also complaining about Tallahassee. Yeah, everybody's just in
One thing,
love with your work.
one thing I want to, what I didn't say in the talk, the way I learned about the Everglades was from water management, not the
Oh, really?
Sierra Club or not the Audubon. It was from actually water management. I learned how the Everglades worked.
Huh,
That was my source of learning was water management in West Palm Beach. Well, okay, I'll tell you something. You probably nobody believes me, but 1997, Colonel Rice gave my wife and I a tour in Jacksonville of the Corps. 110 people over 2 days gave us presentations, slideshows, talks. One guy, this was in 1997, was showing us what he's doing. He was engineering walls around the cities of Florida.
whoa,
Okay. That's the Corps of Engineers concept of global warming.
yeah,
I mean, that's all they can do. They can't do anything politically. All they can do is build stuff. So they're actually engineering walls around the cities of Florida in 1997. That's how dangerous the thing is. People just
wow,
don't. I was about 3 years ago, the head biologist from Greenland was running our cottage, and I discovered who he was. I said, I got to have a talk with you. And we had a long talk, and he said that it's much scarier than people have any idea.
wow,
He says the glaciers in Greenland are starting to slip off the mountains. When they slip off the mountains, the ocean can go up 20 feet in a couple of days.
jeez,
I mean, people just have no idea. They don't care.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I mean, particularly Rubidoux, Scott, these guys. Oh
Okay.
God.
you don't gotta tell me, man.
No.
but I can't even with them. But
I shouldn't get into politics because
yeah, we'll jump over it, and I have I want to, so as much as I would like to read you every compliment that has come in, there's just too many. We'd be here all night. Just know that everyone is so appreciative, and they love your work so much.
well, I try to help people understand Florida, and Florida is probably one of the more precious places in the United States. I mean, I photographed all over the United States. I have a book on the about it's all over the United States, and Florida is my favorite spot.
Wow.
And one thing we need about photographing Florida, I don't have to worry about people because of this COVID thing. Nobody knows where I go.
Right. Well,
So it's really nice.
So I have, this is, I want to close because I really like this question. And I've been waiting to ask it for the end, but someone said that they would like to hear in your own voice. What is the legacy you'd like to leave on the earth, on this earth?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
Well,
big one. That's a big one.
well, what I like to be is called as an educator. I would like the legacy led by, it would be nice if they were, if the environment was still here, good legacy. If the environment, if Everglades was still here, I can't imagine the Everglades disappearing. It's the only place like this in the world. You know, there's mountains and big rocks everywhere, but the Everglades is a unique place in the world. There's nothing like it. There's things that similar to it. They're mostly swamps. People don't realize the Everglades is really not a swamp. It's actually a river. It's always moving and cleaning, and the water is crystal clear. I mean, you can, in summertime when it's raining good, you can actually drink out of the Everglades.
Yeah.
Where our gallery is,
Yeah.
40 miles north of us is grass. Water's going through 40 miles of grass.
Wow.
I mean, it's just it's an amazing place. And it would be nice in 100 years if the Everglades was still here. That would be the legacy of it, having the Everglades still here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
not just in my pictures.
yeah. Well, I think what you've created, like your body of work that you've created, I think is helping really to do that. I especially how, you know, when you said that these architectural landscape, you know, these spaces that you fall into, I think the more people that can see your work, the more people are going to start to care. And I think it's amazing. And I just want to thank you so much for sitting here and talking to us all this time.
Well, we just had a show, a museum show in Indiana. And the people in Indiana were fascinated with the Everglades. They thought it was just, they never realized it was something like that.
Yeah, well, people don't realize what a unique environment it is, right? It's
Yeah. People in
but-
Miami don't know.
I know, it's crazy.
Well, and Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge, you know, they built a power plant north of it. I mean, they just don't care.
Yeah, yeah, but
Because developers are running Florida.
yeah, well, hopefully the next generation that's coming up will have a
No.
new mindset, you know?
No.
No,
no.
you don't think so?
No. If the old farts don't do it,
You know, I agree with you.
there's not going to be a younger generation to fix
You're
it.
right. You're right. You're right. You win that one.
I get so pissed off. Everybody say, well, we'll teach the kids. Well, then they'll say, when the kids grow up, and say, oh, we'll teach our kids.
Yep.
I mean, the buck stops, like Truman says, the buck stops here.
I agree with you. That is true.
It's the old farts. I mean, who do you think makes the laws?
That's true. That's true.
You know, so we have to teach the older generation, and the older generation can't afford to put solar in their houses.
Yeah.
You can get financing, put it on.
You've got everybody in the chat is agreeing with you on the old farts.
Okay, well, I want to see a whole bunch of people with solar on their roofs in a couple months.
Yeah. All these old farts, all of us old farts have to get on this.
I know unfortunately, it's the only solution. I mean, it's just, it's lingered too long. We knew this in the 70s that what the problem was. Actually, they knew it. England knew it in 1900 with the coal burning things,
Yeah.
factories. They knew how bad it was in 1900.
Yeah. Right. Right. They just didn't do anything about it. Oh, have you ever spoken to the legislature about the Everglades?
Yeah. In fact, I have a show that I donated to the Historical Museum up in Tallahassee, and we have every once in a while we have it up there, and it just goes right over their head. They just don't. Building houses, we live in a 900 square foot house. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have solar on our house, it runs our house, runs our car. As far as the house goes, we have no energy consumption. None.
Wow.
And the one down at the swamp, we have very little because unfortunately that house has 3 air conditioners for the bottom floor and a workspace. And so it only takes care of about 60% of electricity down there, but it's 60%.
Yeah, that's still, I mean, you guys are, you're, you know, walking the walk, you know?
Well, that's, we can't complain. We can't get on your case unless we do.
Exactly right.
Now we're able to get on people's cases because we're doing it.
Right, exactly. That's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to throw it back over to Scott now.
Okay.
Clyde, hi there. This is Scott. Thank you so much. And Autumn, great job with the fielding the questions, and
My
some of
pleasure.
your comments were wonderful. Clyde, I just wanted to mention that somebody actually said that we should show the county commissioners your photos of Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge before they vote on the possible transfer of property to build near the refuge.
Yes.
How can we do that?
So I don't know. So I was thinking it'd be great if everybody could send them your images, but I don't know if we have access to those images of the that you've taken of the refuge.
Well, okay. Can you do a slideshow or something?
We can't. No, they won't let you. All we can do is possibly email them and keep pestering them with our emails on this. They won't let anyone who's not a official
Yeah, I know.
of theirs present.
Okay, well, I would assume Nikki has your email,
She does.
and so we can email you some images about what 2,000 pixels.
Yeah.
That's basically what I do on the screen here is 2,000 pixels.
And even smaller, because we're just going to be emailing them. It'll help protect them more. So you can make it even 1,000 pixels.
Like okay, basically a Facebook size.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have her. We'll get a bunch of images together and send them to you. Hopefully, well, tomorrow she's going to be busy, but
That's okay.
Thursday.
And I'm going to send you the chat so you can see all the compliments.
That's great.
'Cause-
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see that. And I also just wanted to let you know, apparently this is somebody who you know, Sherry Patillo says, Oscar's brother, Wadey, sends warm greetings to you and Nikki. Thank you for honoring Oscar for the enjoyable presentation.
Well, Waddy's pretty much a hoot. Have you heard about his watermelon machine?
I have not.
He has built a watermelon cannon. He
I
shoots
love it. That's great. That's great.
But, yeah, he's unfortunately Waddy didn't know as much history as Oscar did, and Oscar passed away before we got all the information out of him. His family was quite important in South Florida.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Clyde, thank you so much. Thank you for being you and for all the work that you've done and the impact you've had on so many of us. I know that my wife and I, Mary, have seen many of your photos at different presentations, and we were always super excited. And I can't tell you how happy we are that you were here tonight. And I know from the compliments and the thanks I've gotten for having you here tonight as a presenter, how important this was to our membership as well. Thank you so much.
Well, if you can't save the property, you can't save the birds.
Yes,
That's right.
that's right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, they ask me, you want to save the panther? I said, no, heck no, I don't want to save the panther. But if I save where he can live and eat, he'll take care of himself.
Excellent.
Well, Clyde, I'm gonna tell everyone good night and just let them know about our next presenter next week. And I want to thank you once again for being with us tonight. And I will, as I said, I will send you the chat and I look forward to getting those photos and I will try to get those out if you don't mind. I
Sure.
can post some of them so people, if people don't mind, maybe they can send them to some of the commissioners and let them know how they
Right.
feel about the Waxahachie National Wildlife Refuge and
Right.
why we should not be building any more
'cause
developments next to it.
They probably have no idea what it is.
Well, I really don't think so. I think they only know what it is maybe from the visitor center area, and they don't really understand that this is a
Well-
massive 135,000 acre refuge.
Well, the reason, the area that I took those photographs were in an area where you're not supposed to go. The rangers took me out there because they wanted to show me what it really was. And that
Yeah.
you can't see the areas that I photographed from the boardwalks. So I think that would be a good idea.
Yes, thank you. I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much, Clyde.
Okay. I'm not sure how to turn this thing off.
Get your screen.
That's okay. I'm going to share my screen and it'll stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
Put your video.
So everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know by the comments how much you enjoyed Clyde Butcher's presentation tonight. It was awesome. Next month on April 5th, we will be having, as I said, Tyler Beck, who will be talking to us about snail kite conservation. Such an important bird to all of us in Palm Beach County, particularly to Audubon Everglades. And I know you'll be excited by that presentation as well. And we look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, happy birding. Have a great month. Hope you get out there a little bit before it starts getting too hot in South Florida. Be sure spring migration is coming, so it's a great time to see birds. Anyway, have a great evening. See you next month. And remember, it will be our general membership meeting, and we will be voting on our budget and on our new slate of officers for 2022 to 2024. And Autumn Quixote, by the way, who helped us tonight, is one of those officers. So we're excited to have her long-term as one of our Audubon Everglades Board of Director officers. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you, Clyde. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.